Imagine a time when the very foundation of American democracy was still being laid, where political battles weren't just about policy but about the very soul of the republic. What if I told you that the two-party system we take for granted today was not just inevitable, but the product of deliberate ideological struggle? Before the Civil War, before political polarization became a buzzword, Martin Van Buren, yes, the 8th President of the United States, crafted one of the most insightful analyses of American political dynamics. His work, Inquiry into the Origin and Course of Political Parties in the United States, published in 1867, isn't just history. It's a blueprint for understanding how factions, ideologies, and power struggles shape democracy. And yet, despite its significance, few outside academic circles discuss it. Why? Because Van Buren's analysis challenges the way we think about American politics. He doesn't just recount events, he dissects the very nature of political allegiance. In the next 8 minutes, we'll break down this work, uncover its key arguments, and see how it still applies to modern political debates. By the end, you'll walk away with a deeper understanding of why political parties exist and why they behave the way they do. Let's begin. Van Buren starts by arguing that political divisions in America were not accidental. They were the natural outcome of the country's founding tensions. The Federalists, led by Alexander Hamilton, sought a strong central government, fearing mob rule. Meanwhile, the Democratic Republicans, under Thomas Jefferson, championed states' rights and agrarian democracy, warning against the rise of an elite ruling class. Van Buren emphasizes that these weren't just policy disagreements, they were ideological battles about the very purpose of government. These early tensions defined not just party alignments, but the expectations of governance in the newly formed republic. The debates were not just limited to the Founding Fathers. Newspapers, pamphlets, and political clubs became battlegrounds for ideological conflicts, shaping public perception and solidifying party identities. As the nation expanded westward, these factions adapted, absorbing new interests and responding to economic transformations that tested their foundational beliefs. The evolution of party identity. As the 19th century progressed, the Federalists faded, but new tensions emerged. The Democratic Party, shaped by figures like Andrew Jackson and Van Buren himself, built a coalition that embraced popular democracy. Meanwhile, the Whigs formed as a counterforce, advocating for economic modernization and government intervention in infrastructure. Van Buren, ever the strategist, highlights how these parties weren't static. They evolved in response to national crises, economic change, and shifting voter allegiances. The rise of industrialization and the expansion of suffrage meant that parties needed to appeal to broader and more diverse constituencies. Internal divisions within both parties grew, leading to regional and ideological splintering that would later redefine political affiliations in profound ways. The Whigs, for example, found themselves split between those who embraced progressive policies and those who were more conservative, leading to their eventual dissolution and the rise of the Republican Party. The role of sectionalism. Van Buren's work takes a sharp turn as he addresses the elephant in the room, slavery. He argues that while economic and philosophical differences mattered, sectionalism, North versus South, became the defining factor in American politics. The Missouri Compromise, the nullification crisis, and the rise of the abolitionist movement were not just events, they were symptoms of deep fractures that would ultimately lead to the Civil War. Political parties, rather than bridging these divides, became instruments for reinforcing them. The compromises and legislative battles of the mid-19th century showcased the difficulty of balancing national unity with deeply entrenched sectional interests. The Kansas-Nebraska Act and the Dred Scott decision further exacerbated tensions, solidifying the divide between free and slave states. As political alignments fractured, the ability of parties to act as mediators between competing interests diminished, leading to heightened instability. The two-party system as a stabilizing force. One of Van Buren's most controversial arguments is that political parties, despite their flaws, are necessary stabilizers in a democracy. He contends that a well-structured party system prevents radical factions from gaining unchecked power. By forcing diverse interests to coalesce into broad coalitions, parties create a sense of order amid political chaos. It's a striking contrast to the modern view that partisanship is a disease. Van Buren saw it as a cure for the anarchy of pure factionalism. Yet the challenge remains: can political parties maintain their role as stabilizers if they become too rigid? Van Buren warns against the dangers of political stagnation, where party loyalty outweighs responsiveness to public concerns. History has shown that periods of reform and realignment are necessary for democratic institutions to remain relevant. The Progressive Era, the New Deal, and the Civil Rights Movement are examples of moments when political parties had to adapt or risk obsolescence. Lessons for future generations. Van Buren concludes with a warning. Political parties are only beneficial as long as they remain responsive to the public. The danger arises when they become tools for personal ambition rather than democratic governance. His insights foreshadow the struggles of the modern era, where party loyalty sometimes overshadows policy and where ideological purity can fracture a coalition rather than unite it. In a time where political disillusionment is widespread, revisiting Van Buren's perspective offers a refreshing lens. It reminds us that political systems are not static, they must evolve with the times. The challenge for any democracy is not the existence of parties, but their ability to serve as vehicles for meaningful political discourse and governance. When parties prioritize power over principle, the system begins to erode from within. Analysis and modern relevance. What makes inquiry into the origin and course of political parties in the United States still relevant today? First, Van Buren's view that parties are necessary institutions challenges the contemporary cynicism toward political partisanship. Second, his focus on sectionalism reminds us that geography, identity, and ideology continue to shape voter behavior. Lastly, his belief that parties should be adaptable warns against political stagnation. When parties stop evolving, they risk losing their connection with the people they claim to represent. Van Buren may not be a household name today, but his work offers a roadmap for understanding the cycles of political realignment in American history. His message? Democracy is not just about elections. It's about managing conflict, building consensus, and ensuring that political institutions serve the people, not the other way around. So, what do you think? Are political parties a necessary evil or a crucial stabilizing force in democracy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into political philosophy and classic literature. Until next time, this has been 8-Minute Masterpieces, where we turn complex ideas into bite-sized knowledge.